Hello YouTubers, this is Cessnaace and this is another mega LaserDisc ads video. I have a lot of LaserDisc to cover in this video, so I'm going to try and go as quickly as possible without giving too short a shrift to the titles I'm going to show. I'm going to show them in alphabetical order by title. First up we have The Bear, released by RCA Columbia Pictures Home Video, copyright 1990, artwork and design. So I didn't write down the release dates at the LaserDisc database as to when these were released, but rule of thumb, that's what I go by. The copyright date for the package design and summary generally is when a title was released. This film was originally produced to be released by TriStar. TriStar, well, tri obviously means three, was initially owned by three corporate entities: Columbia Pictures, Coca-Cola, which at the time owned Columbia Pictures, and Disney. Coca-Cola then sold Columbia Pictures to Sony, so Sony wound up with a third of TriStar, and then sometime later Coca-Cola sold their third to Sony, leaving Sony two-thirds control over TriStar, and then that was followed by Disney selling their third to Sony. So for a number of years now, TriStar has been wholly owned by Sony, and the big concern at the time was would Sony discontinue the use of well, the main interest was Columbia Pictures, because they'd been around for so long. Would they stop using the Columbia Pictures brand? But they still are releasing films under the Columbia Pictures name, as well as TriStar and Sony Pictures. And they took a unit which was originally formed in 1939, I believe, as the animation arm of Columbia Pictures. They produced the animated shorts for Columbia, and that unit was Screen Gems. Sometime around 48, Screen Gems still hadn't come up with a character that was popular, so they shut down Screen Gems and they signed UPA to make their cartoons under contract. And almost immediately UPA started coming up with popular characters like Mr. Magoo. But anyway, in 1948, Columbia Pictures immediately reactivated Screen Gems as their television production and distribution arm. A lot of the studios were at that time doing that sort of thing because television was seen as the enemy. But Columbia Pictures kept up the ruse longer than any of the other studios. They kept Screen Gems as their television arm from 1948 to 1972. Then it was deactivated. Sometime after Sony bought Columbia Pictures and TriStar and all that, they reactivated Screen Gems, but as their film production and distribution arm for low-budget science fiction and horror films. Anyway, I got kind of off the subject here. The Bear, released circa 1990. If I didn't already say, release 70216. This has audio in Dolby Surround. And it is letterboxed. Now, on the back of the jacket, it says manufactured by Pioneer Video Incorporated. But you can't always go by that. In fact, one of the titles that I've added to my collection of the LaserDisc database is a title that the jacket and the labels all say manufactured by WEA Manufacturing, which did have two facilities, one in the U.S. and one in Germany. But that disc was actually made by Pioneer, going by the mint marks. The LaserDisc database uses something called Mint-O-Matic. You type in the mint marks and it automatically determines where it was made. There are the mint marks for this title, and that is a Pioneer numbering system. It doesn't indicate whether it's made by Pioneer's U.S. plant or Japanese plant. A lot of the earlier stuff that Pioneer was having made for release in the U.S. was made at their Japanese plant because they had bought the U.S. plant, which formerly was known as Siskel. They shut it down and totally revamped it, retooled it. But by 1990, their U.S. plant was up and running full steam. So I can't tell you off the top of my head where this particular release was made. If you go to the LaserDisc database, you can find that information. Now, if you want to look up a title, you can look up by a title by its title or by the catalog reference number, which I told you, 70216, or I'll mess with the jacket, outer sleeve protected thing, protection thing later. You can go by title. You could enter in the catalog reference number. You can enter in the ISBN. You can enter in the Universal Product Code number, or you can enter in the IMBD database number for that title. But anyway, it's number one. Okay. The American market for LaserDiscs was relatively small. It had only 2% market penetration. But taking that and looking at it more closely, it's amazing how many titles were released in the U.S. on LaserDisc, given the fact that 98% of homes didn't have a LaserDisc player. This was mainly due to the fact that you had two distributors who were battling each other rather fervently, Image Entertainment and Pioneer. And the ironic thing is, a lot of the Image discs were made by Pioneer, in the early days anyway, but Image was trying its best to get away from Pioneer, so whenever a new facility opened up, they would start using them. And they were releasing so much that they pretty much had to rely, well, they relied on every plant in the U.S. plus most of the facilities in Japan, plus PDO UK in England, plus Sony's Austrian plant. So there's just a tremendous number of discs that were released in the LaserDisc format. Worldwide, it's now over 51,000 releases. When I first started entering my collection in at the database, it was at 37,900 known titles. And every week or two, another batch of 100 or so are added to the database, as well as any titles that are found in the other formats they track. The CED format, the VHD format, which was only released in Japan, the Muse High Vision format, which was the high-def variant of the LaserDisc format. It was only released in Japan. Digital VHS, HD DVD, that sort of thing. People are adding titles all the time, or updating titles all the time, providing more and more information. If you want to see my collection at the database, just do a member search for Cessnaace, spelled the same way that it is here, and you'll call it my collection, which is currently over 39 pages long. But anyway, where I was going with this is that in addition to their mainstream releases, Image also had a line, which I've discussed previously, for porn titles. They were licensing every porn title they could get their hands on and releasing it under the name LaserDisc Entertainment. They also had a foreign film line known as the Cinema Disc Collection. And I've already have quite a few of those, but I've got more here. And then they released a lot of silent films, a lot of which I already have, and some I'm adding now. And most of their silent films came in this silver design. The Silent Classics. This is Broken Blossoms, starring Lillian Gish. There's a introduction by Lillian Gish to the film. This was released by Image under license from Thames Video. Now, normally I try and, well, I hope that whenever I find a new silent film release, it's from the Black Hawk Films collection, because Black Hawk Films was very meticulous about how they maintain their film library. They maintained their own negatives. They made their own prints. They did their own transfers when they did video transfers. Just really high quality. But this, however, came from the Rohauer collection. And I can't remember if I added the mint marks to this title or not. I do know that I added the courtesy info. The front photo is courtesy of Thames Television. The rear jacket photo is courtesy of the Museum of Modern Art. I know this because it says so right there. Specially tinted black and white print. There's that CD video logo again, but at least it has an LD beside it, and then the LaserVision logo. The CX noise reduction logo for the analog tracks. And it also has digital tracks. Image Entertainment used a rather consistent catalog numbering system. In the beginning, the earlier titles started with an I, and then dash, and then a 4-digit number. But then they switched to ID, 4-digit number, and then a 2-letter suffix, which they assigned each 2-letter suffix to a particular distributor, I mean not distributor, but home video company, or whatever. Anyway, This they licensed from HBO Video. I don't know if you can make that out, but the two-letter suffix is HB. The full catalog reference number is ID 6861HB. So always excited to add new foreign films to my collection and new silent films to my collection. Okay. We have the best of Mission Impossible, which featured in the cast married couple Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, who were later to star in the science fiction series in England called Space 1999. That series had an international cast, and they were primarily hired because they were well known to American audiences, which was the primary reason why Barry Morse was signed to the series. He was well known to American audiences for having co-starred in a very popular series called The Fugitive. And it must have worked because the market that Space 1999 had the biggest success in was the American market. Okay, this includes 2 episodes. Episode 1, the pilot episode, and episode 40, the photographer. On the back of each jacket, they have a trivia question. And then it says, hold package up to a mirror to read the answer. Well, I haven't bothered with that yet. Pioneer Home Video, or Pioneer Entertainment rather, distributed this title for Paramount. Paramount is one of the few studios that did not switch from Pioneer to Image once Image became bigger than Pioneer as far as the LaserDisc distributor was concerned. This is catalog reference number LV154203. I was pleasantly surprised to find that of all of the 40 or so titles that I've added in the last couple of weeks to my collection at the LaserDisc database, only 2 or 3 have had any cases reported of any defects whatsoever, and those have been low probability. The vast majority of the ones I've added have no reported cases of defects, and I attribute this to the fact that the bad players, as I call them, aren't very well represented in the LaserDisc that I've picked up so far, which, as I stated in the last video, came from most of them came from one collection. I do have some here from ABC Lasers, but a lot of these films, our LaserDisc, came from one collection. So far, nothing from Technodisc, which was one of the bad players, PDO UK, another one of the bad players, and Sony's US plant, which started having quality control problems in the mid-90s. Only a handful of their titles, but ironically, the titles, small handful of titles that I have added that have a small number of reported defects for that title, none of them were made by Sony. Made by Pioneer. Anyway, this is the best of Mission Impossible Volume 2, I'll learn to speak one of these days. Episode 13, The Carriers, and Episode 35, The Seal. Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, then married, left Mission Impossible to star together in what TV show? Well, I've already given you the answer to that, and I could make it out even without holding it up to a mirror anyway. The answer is Space 1999. This is release number LV154213. Okay. Next up, the best of Mission Impossible Volume 3. Parts 1 and 2 of Episode 37, The Council. We get out there. Peter Graves changed his name to avoid being confused with his brother, another television star. Who was his brother? Well, I can't make that one out, and as I said, I haven't held these up to a mirror yet, so I don't know the answer to that one. But I'm sure somebody who watches this video will look it up on the internet. Care to guess what this title is? The Best of Mission Impossible Volume 6. I didn't pick up Volumes 4 and 5 because they were not in the collection that I bought. That was bought by Yesterday and Today. When Martin Landau left the series, his character was replaced by another master of disguise named Paris. Who played Paris? Well, it says there, look to the right and hold up to a mirror. Well, I don't need to do that. I already know the answer is Leonard Nimoy, but that's where it is, right there. The episodes on here are Parts 1 and 2 of Episode 69, The Bunker. This is release LV154253. Okay, moving over to Hong Kong for a bit. There are a lot of things about Hong Kong releases that I like. Same trait that they share with Japanese LaserDisc that I like. First up, we have A Chinese Ghost Story. This was the very first LaserDisc release by Golden Cinema City Distribution Limited. And I don't know if you can make it out, but that's another thing I like. They put the price printed right on the jacket. 780 Hong Kong dollars. Now, in most markets, the LaserDisc format was a niche format. In the US, the niche was people who were putting together a home theater, audio files, video files, that sort of thing, because the LaserDisc format at the time had the best video quality and the best sound quality. In Japan, it was big among anime buffs. So it was roughly 10% market share in Japan, 5 times the market share that it had in the U.S., but Japan is a smaller country. But anyway, that is why so much anime has been released on LaserDisc, because of the niche market that it had there in Japan. And in Hong Kong, the LaserDisc format was the #1 format as far as rentals were concerned. Now, another thing I like about Hong Kong releases and Japanese releases, you have the information there on the spine, as you do with American releases, and on the top, which is cool if you store them this way and you thumb through them, although I don't recommend that, because when you're thumbing through, you're putting stress on the top of the jacket, and as the jacket moves, you're putting stress on the bottom of the jacket. So it's not something I recommend doing. Now, this came with a little Brucey bonus. Oh, I forgot to mention. In Cantonese only. This came with a little Brucey bonus, but it was not something that was included with the disc originally. It was something that was later added by a previous owner. And this has to do with a Hong Kong film festival held in the U.S. I know, because that's a U.S. telephone number for one thing. 1994, Festival Hong Kong. There is the schedule for the films that they're going to run. If I were British, I would say schedule. Has every film that they showed with a description and everything, and the show times. I added to the comment section for this title of the LaserDisc database that I found this in my used copy, and I was kind of surprised that Julian, the administrator there, accepted it, because it's generally reserved for tidbits as far as who did the mastering of the film and so forth and so on. That, by the way, was the very first release from that company, release A001. This is a Chinese ghost story 2. On the front, I have a sticker, but they also have it printed. Golden Cinema City Video Distribution Limited. This is release A069. But by this time, they had added a language as an option. Note there that it says bilingual. Offers the language in either Cantonese or Mandarin. $780 Hong Kong dollars. Okay, next up we have A Chinese Ghost Story 3. From Golden Cinema City Video Distribution Limited. release A129. Again, language options are Cantonese and Mandarin. I know I've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating. The LaserDisc format had no region encoding. It also had no copy protection, which was one of the reasons why the studios switched from LaserDisc to supporting DVD in as quick a hurry as they did. That and the fact that LaserDiscs were expensive to make and DVDs are cheap to replicate. So the markup, especially in the beginning when they were selling DVDs for $20, $25, $30 for just your average run-of-the-mill release. I mean, I saw some public domain titles that were $15, but they were only costing 10 or 20 cents a piece to make, and that includes the cost of replication, the cost of packaging. And I know all this because at one time I had considered taking my retirement funds and starting my own video label, because there were certain things that were not out on video that I wanted to put out on video. Especially there were a lot of foreign films that I had an interest in seeing released on LaserDisc. But in any event, I checked the cost of securing video masters, the cost of creating a DVD master, authoring it, the cost of replicating the discs, the cost of the packaging and everything, and total cost was around $0.25. And of course, the higher number that you produce, the lower the price. Whereas it costs LaserDisc manufacturers about $6 per disc to make. So that is why the studios moved to DVD so quickly. The other thing I wanted to say was that there were two television standards that were supported by the LaserDisc format, NTSC and PAL. The French system, CCAM, they used PAL, is my understanding. French releases were in PAL. All American, Japanese, and Hong Kong LaserDisc releases were in the same standard, NTSC. So any American LaserDisc player, or any of the LaserDisc players made for release overseas that could handle both NTSC and PAL, can play any LaserDisc, as long as it supports those standards. There were, of course, PAL only standard players released overseas, and I don't believe they ever sold any players here in the US that were capable of playing PAL. I might be mistaken, but I don't think so. Okay, this is part of Image Entertainment's foreign film line, known as the CinemaDisc collection. And they released a lot of foreign films as part of the CinemaDisc collection. 1989 Academy Award winner, Best Foreign Language Film. In Italian with English subtitles, and it also offers an English dub track. Unfortunately, this was not released by MGM-UA. Most of their titles that are on 2 discs are in a gatefold jacket. MCA Universal Home Video and Image generally just use regular sleeves that could handle 2 discs. This is Image Entertainment release ID 7387HB. Okay. We have another film here as part of the Cinema Disc collection. Cyrano de Bergerac, licensed from Orion Home Video. In French with yellow English subtitles. Catalog reference number is ID 83710R. Okay, when Bill of Yesterday and Today told me that about this collection, he mentioned that there were a lot of music titles in there, and I said, great. This is one of them. Dire Straits, On the Night. Cool cover. And this makes the first release in my collection, which is over 800 now, from this publisher, Warner Reprise Video. And this is release number 9-3845-6. Okay, I saw this one in theater, a theater, on its original release. Fletch Lives. I went and saw the first film because I had I had read the Fletch novels, so I was curious. From MCA Home Video, this is release 40881. Okay, another classic silent film starring one of Jackie Chan's heroes. He has stated that he is a fan of American musicals, but also the films of American comedian actors of the silent era, Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd. Why them? Well, because they did their own stunts. A lot of the film comedians in the silent era did do their own stunts. And in fact, Harold Lloyd, in one of the films that he was in, lost half of a finger doing a stunt. But if you watch a lot of Jackie Chan films and are familiar with the films of Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd, you will see a lot of the same stunts done, although not always as big a scope. For example, in one of Jackie Chan's films, he is hanging from a clock, a big outdoor clock, and he falls. And of course, most people know the story about how he landed wrong and was nearly killed because nearly crushed in his skull. But anyway, that was taken from a Harold Lloyd film. And that scene, which he did, his own stunt, was a clock that was much higher up. So, actually, I'm a big fan of Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd. This is a classic Buster Keaton film, The General. This has some of the most amazing train stunt sequences you're ever going to see. Now, I added this to my collection some time ago on VHS from Black Hawk Films. This was licensed by Image from HBO Video. Made from an original nitrate print in the Rohauer collection, with a new score by Carl Davis. Video presentation produced by David Gill and Kevin Brownlow in association with Thames Television. Catalog reference number ID 6862 HB. Okay, let me know when that starts to get old. Okay, you're not going to believe I bought this one. Probably not going to believe I bought this one. But if you are surprised that I bought this, then you don't know me very well. Grateful Dead, Ticket to New Year's. And when I first read that, I swore I thought it said Billy Graham Presents. And that would be quite a combination. Billy Graham presenting the Grateful Dead. This is one I got from yesterday and today, so I paid the amazingly high price of $3 for this. From Pioneer Artists, release number PA-96-573. Generally, the way their cataloging system worked was PA for Pioneer Artists. They also had Pioneer Special Interests and Pioneer Artist Series or something like that. Anyway, PA dash and then 96 for the year it was released, and then dash 573 the release for that year as part of that line. This is in a gatefold jacket. Okay, this is a film I really like. I already have it on VHS. Oh, I did. I started thinking, wait a minute, on the Grateful Dead one, I didn't tell you the catalog reference number, but I did. This is The Great Train Robbery, starring Sean Connery, Donald Sutherland, and Leslie Ann Down. A Michael Crichton film. This is based on a Michael Crichton novel. Michael Crichton wrote the screenplay, and he directed the film. Now, this release includes a running commentary track with Michael Crichton. It's from MGMUA, so it's in a beautiful gatefold jacket, even though it's only on one disc. This is MGA-UA home video release ML101427. Move that aside. So this box into place. See, I have a system now. Now, when this film came out theatrically, I can remember Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert saying it was a really good movie, but it came out too late. It should have come out 10 years earlier. And I'm of the opinion it's never too late for a great film. This is a film based on the musical Hair. And what's interesting about this film is that it was directed by foreign-born director Milos Forman. This has some truly amazing musical number sequences. There is a musical dance sequence involving horses that you have to see to believe. MGMUA home video release ML101330, $3, and as it came from this amazing collection, the spines on all of these are immaculate. Okay, this is a really interesting, for film buffs, documentary. It's All True. Based on an unfinished film by Orson Welles, The Lost Masterpiece. Welles had been asked to be part of the United States anti-Nazi good neighbor policy. Walt Disney was also part of that. He got a number of films out of that, including The Three Caballeros. Unfortunately, this film, most of which was shot on location, RKO pulled the plug on it before it was finished. So this is a documentary on that whole process of him trying to get this film made and the problems that he encountered, and it also includes all of the known remaining footage that he had shot. And it also includes, as a bonus, Orson Welles' Hello Americas CBS radio broadcast with Carmen Miranda, November 15th, 1942. So really, really cool, and a must-have for film buffs. This was from Paramount Home Video, release LV5040. I'm racking up the time on this one, but I can't not do this one. This is an amazing double-featured LaserDisc of early Stanley Kubrick films. It was these films. There were these films. Anyway, these two films were the two films that launched his career. They were the second and third film that he made. Films that he made. Anyway, Killer's Kiss and The Killing. Now, it was a actor by the name of Kirk Douglas who saw these films and immediately wanted him to direct a film he was going to star in, Paths of Glory, which Kubrick did, and the film turned out great. Well, United Artists, I think it was, whoever it was that commissioned Spartacus, they had hired a different director to direct Spartacus, and he had only filmed just a few bits when he was fired, mainly because Kirk Douglas wanted Stanley Kubrick. So Stanley Kubrick fans would tell you that Spartacus is the least Kubrick-like film of his films, but it's got a lot of Kubrick touches in it, cinematically speaking, such as a really low camera angle in one of the gladiator training sequences. They had to dig a hole in the ground for the camera so that it could shoot up, and everybody that was taking part in that production, why is he doing that? Why doesn't he just shoot it normally and we could go on to the next scene? But Kubrick got this idea and he said that's the way he wanted to do it, and that's the way he did it. Both of these films, especially The Killing, are considered classics. From MGM UA Home Video, release ML102875. And on that note, I am going to stop, because otherwise we're going to hit an hour and nobody's going to watch a video of me that lasts an hour. So until next time, stay awesome.